Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been. Will be. How can there not? Just something about those blue skies, high banks, and high speed, all coming together in one perfect race. And it'll be here sooner than you think.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover with you from our Tuscaloosa studios as we'll go through a very anticipated show coming up today, covering the latest on Alabama athletics. We'll go through everything coming up on the show thanks to our friends at RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. First things first, we'll have a visit with the Director of Athletics for the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne. A lot of exciting updates concerning Crimson Tide athletics coming up in our conversation with Greg, so stick around for that coming up in just a few moments. Then we'll take a look back to last night's game against Mississippi State with our Courtside Cam highlights as Chris Stewart, joined by Richard Hendricks for this game, called the Alabama against Mississippi State game, and then we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nate Oats, after the game at Coleman Coliseum with Coach's Checklist. And then we'll talk baseball for the rest of the show. We'll go back to Monday night. We have a replay of our Hey Coach conversation with Brad Bohannon as the baseball coach for the University of Alabama. Really did a great job breaking down each bit of the roster coming up for this season. Other headlines, Crimson Tide men's basketball team got that victory against Missouri. We've heard Coach Oats talk about it time and time again. Alabama had not won at Mizzou Arena in his time at the Capstone. Now the Crimson Tide have 85-64, really a dominant effort for the Crimson Tide before they're home on Wednesday against Mississippi State. Now coming up this Saturday, it's the SEC Big 12 Challenge. Alabama at Oklahoma coming up at 1 p.m. Alabama trying to avenge a loss to Oklahoma from back in 2021, the year that Alabama went on to win the SEC. So the Crimson Tide looking forward to that matchup with the Sooners, as Alabama right now ranks second in the AP poll, receiving a lot of votes for number one, just behind Purdue. So who knows, maybe the time we talk again coming up next week, the Crimson Tide will indeed be number one in the nation. Women's basketball team right now going through a tough stretch, playing so many good teams. On Monday night fell to LSU, the third-ranked team in the country and undefeated, 89-51. Now coming up tonight, it'll be the Crimson Tide in Fayetteville, Arkansas, to take on the Razorbacks, a team that, like Alabama, is 4-3 so far in SEC play. Arkansas has won 5 straight against Alabama, so the Crimson Tide trying to pick up a much-needed victory tonight before on Sunday hosting South Carolina at noon. Also, good news to report for one of the signees for the Crimson Tide, Essence Cody. She has been named a McDonald's All-American, a great honor for Cody, one of the headliners in this upcoming signing class for Christy Curry. Also, some Crimson Tide athletics news. Great news for us here with Learfield and the Crimson Tide Sports Network. An extension has been reached with the University of Alabama Athletics as the multimedia rights partner that will go for the next 15 years. With that, there will be a dedicated NIL center. We'll hear more about that from Greg Byrne coming up in a few moments. And then to round everything out today, gymnastics Friday at Kentucky as the Crimson Tide look to bounce back after a loss last week against Florida. The baseball team, as we'll hear about with Coach Bohannon, practice begins this Friday. We want to see you at Sewell Thomas Stadium, especially coming up on February 4th for Fan Day coming up. More details on that coming up as well. And then speaking of Fan Day and kids getting involved, Big Al's Kids Club has relaunched. You can check out more about that on rolltide.com. We'll also have some of that coming up in our conversation with the Director of Athletics, Greg Byrne. Speaking of Greg Byrne, it's time to hear from the Director of Athletics as he always joins us once a month here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, to give us the latest on Alabama athletics. Roll Tide, Greg. It's great to see you. The last time we were talking, we were discussing wrapping up the football season, basketball in full swing, and now it seems like everybody's in full swing in terms of winter sports here at the Capstone. Roll Tide, good to see you.
Yeah, roll tide, Roger. Roll tide to everybody out there. Obviously, this is a busy time of year. Almost all of our sports are competing one way or the other, even football. Obviously, Coach Saban's out recruiting and then at the same time, too, working on the staff. So a lot going on here. But it was a really good fall season for us. Football team finished strong in the Sugar Bowl, and we actually ended up having a good group of fans that were able to make the trip, which we certainly do appreciate. We finished 10th in the Learfield Cup after the fall sports, which is one of our highest finishes ever. And men's and women's cross country won the SEC championships in soccer, and then made our first soccer cup I call it the College Cup in women's soccer. and I was able to go over to North Carolina, as a number of our fans were. We had a lot of Alabama fans there, cheering on our team and Coach Hart and the group, and what a special year that was. So, it really successful fall in a lot of ways. Proud of all the efforts of our kids, our student athletes, our coaches, our staff, and our fans to really get the year off to a good start.
And now starting off 2023 at home with a lot of great events, starting with Coleman Coliseum, and gymnastics has been in full swing. I'm sure you've been excited for the start of the Ashley Johnston era.
Yeah, it's been great to watch Ashley spend time with her team and get things going. And we had a tough meet against Florida last Friday, but still competed well and continued to get better. And we had 2 other wins already, including going on the road to Arkansas and winning. We're up at Kentucky this Friday, and they obviously are good. And I was over in the gymnastics office earlier today. I try to get out and I delivered donuts to our staff, and just it gives you a chance to get out and see people and thank them. I was in with the ticket office and some other areas, and stopped by gymnastics. And as what our Gina, one of our assistant coaches, said to me, I said, "Hey, Kentucky's pretty good this year." And she said, "Yeah, everybody's good, Greg," which she's right, they are. So Southeastern Conference and gymnastics is such a high level, but really excited about the job that Ashley and her staff and the team are doing. And I think we're going to continue to get better as the year goes on.
It's just life in the SEC with all the different sports that we have. Everybody is so good. That, of course, includes swimming and diving. Alabama got to be at home recently for that. Tennis, and then indoor track and field season's already started as well.
Yeah, they're all going. And, we've had tennis matches at home already. Our track team was competed in Nashville, Birmingham, and sometimes an indoor track season, they get spread throughout the country, or we'll send kids to different parts depending on what the needs are to qualify for nationals. But yeah, Coach Waters has done such a fine job with our track team, indoor, outdoor, cross country, across the board. I'm real proud of the efforts they have, and both Jenny and George with our tennis coaches, they got good programs. Kids are out there competing at a high level, and hopefully we can have a good winter and spring with those sports as well.
Well, it's been an exciting week for us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. It was announced on Tuesday that the University of Alabama and Learfield have announced an extension for the Crimson Tide Sports Network through 2039. Along with that, some new name, image, and likeness opportunities with the Advantage Center. Just what can you tell us about the deal from the Alabama athletics perspective?
Yeah, we've been partners with Learfield and Crimson Tide Sports Properties for many years. We had an opportunity to have a discussion with them, and even talk to a couple other folks out there just to know where we were in the marketplace. Obviously, our brand, who we are at Alabama, is a very strong one. We're fortunate for that. And our world and multimedia rights is changing pretty dramatically right now. NIL has become a real factor in the marketplace and advertising and all those different things. So really excited and proud of the way that Learfield has continued to evolve with that. And so we have a new 15-year agreement. It's a long one that will certainly take through the time of me as athletic director, I think anyways. But put our university and our athletic department in a really good position when it comes to our multimedia rights. And we're thrilled that they have thought very thoroughly about where NIL is headed and their involvement that they can and can't be involved with. We announced the Advantage Center, which is going to be our hub for NIL activities. Now young men and young women can have representation. They can have agents. And so the agents will have times where they have opportunities to do marketing deals with people that Learfield do advertising and business with. Learfield won't be cutting those deals necessarily, but what they will be doing is being the education tool, the conduit to bring the student athletes, our marks, our brands together when that is those opportunities are there. And so it's really being on the front end of having dedicated space to allow to educate, to talk about the NIL marketplace in a very strong environment that will allow our student athletes to maximize their opportunities. And so when we started talking about innovative ideas, the Advantage was something that we thought made a lot of sense, and they did too. And I think it's going to put our young men and young women in the best possible position for their future NIL activities.
Certainly excited about that. Again, a great extension between Alabama Athletics and Learfield announced earlier this week. And right now, behind me at our Learfield studios here in Tuscaloosa, I've got a green screen so I can change the different backdrops for the different sports. But I've got Coleman Coliseum right before tip-off of the Kentucky game. And the great atmosphere we had for that game, the LSU game, Mississippi State this week. You got to be thrilled with the way the students have come back to campus and really gotten involved in supporting this Alabama men's and women's basketball team.
Yeah, our entire fan base has been awesome. Crimson Chaos has been wonderful. Just the energy that they have continued to bring. I know we're recording this tonight when we play Mississippi State, and so it'll be released after the game. But the energy in Coleman has been the best I've seen. Hard to believe this a week or so ago. It was 6 years that I was named athletic director here, and how fortunate Regina and I have been, and how welcomed we have been from everybody tied to Alabama, and how appreciative we are of that. And so just to see that energy in Coleman has just been awesome. And Coach Oats and his staff and the kids deserve so much credit for that. There's just such good energy within it, where everybody is excited about what's going on with our men's basketball program. And our women's basketball program too. You know, I get the net ratings and all the different things, and we're having a strong season there too, and appreciate the outstanding efforts of Christy Curry and her staff and team, and so. But it's just really been unbelievable, and I was down in Florida seeing a couple donors this week, and down in South Florida, and all that they wanted to talk about was what was going on with the men's basketball program and how excited they were. And that was cool to see that, we're able to stretch, what the job that football does to give great exposure for our university, for our athletic department, for our student athletes throughout the country. And our men's basketball program is starting to have some really positive effects as well. And, so we're going to have another good game tonight. We've got some big games ahead of us, and I think it's an awesome opportunity for fans to get out there, and we've had great turnouts and want that to continue for the remainder of the season.
Speaking of football and basketball for just a moment, that Kentucky game I mentioned, you got to sit next to Coach Saban, Miss Terry, courtside for that ball game. What was it like getting to sit with him? And is he yelling at the refs or anything like that, or is he mainly just focused? How was he as a fan during the game?
Well, they were great. Miss Terry and Coach have come to a couple games with Regina and I over the years, and so usually he watches the games, and so does Miss Terry as much as he can, and so he knows a lot about our roster already. And that's mostly when we were talking, I was telling him about the kids on the team, giving him background on it, and he doesn't yell a whole lot at the officials or anything like that. He may make a comment on a call, but it's fun to get to watch the game with them and talk with them and interact with them, because he obviously is one of the greatest minds of all time when it comes to football, but he also is a very knowledgeable sports fan across the board. And to hear and talk and enjoy a conversation with him about any sport. A couple of years ago, I was with him in Florida, and our softball team was playing, and we sat down and watched the softball game together too. So I always enjoy that opportunity to get to do that with him, and he wants to see all of our teams succeed. I'll tell you that he's one of our very first conversations we ever had. He commented to me, he said, "I think we have an opportunity at Alabama to be good across the board." And I told him I agree. And we have had a lot of success for a lot of years in a lot of different sports, but I also think we're having some pretty strong success across the board. And hopefully it's something that will be consistent for many years to come. And we want to continue to take advantage of that. And he's as happy as anybody when he sees that happen across our department.
Again, there's so much excitement around this program. We're always, of course, thinking about the next generation of Crimson Tide fans. And one of the things I know the marketing department has brought back is Big Al's Kids Club. More information available about that on RolledTide.com. But that's certainly got to be exciting for you to see that the youngsters are once again getting involved with Alabama athletics.
Yeah, obviously our kids are our next generation of fans, right? You want them engaged and involved, and we know how much passion there is. All you got to do is be by Big Al on game day, and kids come. They certainly don't know who the athletic director is, but they know who Big Al is, and so it's really cool to see just the passion that our families have for Big Al, and so it's open to kids 12 and under. It's free to join, gets them involved. They get exclusive events and discounts to different sporting events. And so it's a great way to get young people indoctrinated with the Tide. And I just want to encourage everybody to, go to rolltide.com, and there's information there about Big Al's Kids Club there that people can sign up and be a part of.
Well, that's really exciting. And Big Al's Kids Club will be busy coming up with, of course, not only the basketball, the gymnastics, everything else going up on campus. But the next time we talk in February, it'll be time for softball and baseball season. You got to be thrilled that the bat and ball sports are almost back.
Yeah, it's amazing this time of year when you see. I was driving across the bridge yesterday, and I saw the softball team out at practice, and saw them a lot. Saw the team last night at an event we had. And they're back at it. Baseball, when you walk outside the office here, you can see hear the dings of the bat, and you got the music playing over the speaker system. It's fun to see both those teams getting going too, because I think softball, obviously the expectations every year is very high. I think we got a chance to have a really good team again. And baseball, you're seeing some pretty positive press about our team this year. I think Coach Bohannon was hoping that we'd be able to sneak up on some people. But we talked 2 days ago, and he was telling me, and Brad has always been really good about trying to not overhype, which I get. I certainly understand it. You want to underpromise and hopefully overdeliver. But he said, don't forget, Greg, 7 of the top 10 teams right now are SEC teams, and a lot of those are West teams. And so it's just a juggernaut every single week in the SEC. But I really do believe that we're getting in a really good position for baseball as well. So proud of the job that both Coach Murphy, Coach Bohannon are doing. Be fun to see them go on. Our golf teams, I think, are going to continue to improve as well. And so it's a busy time of year. And swimming, we'll be heading to SECs here in a little bit. Went down to Auburn last week and split the men's and women's with them. But just a lot going on and a lot of really positive things.
Everybody on that poster behind you, very busy at this time of the year, and we certainly like that.
I didn't say anything about Rowan. They're going to be getting going here quick too. And Glenn Poutre and the job that he's done with the program, got us to NCAAs for the first time in our program's history 2 years ago. And hopefully we got a chance to get back there this year. So a lot of positive things happening with Alabama athletics, and we really appreciate everybody's continued support. And we've got such a passionate fan base. They care so much about it, and I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. We appreciate you all.
Very well said. Well, Greg Byrne, we appreciate you and the hard work you're doing for Alabama athletics. Just thank you for joining us this month on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, for this update, and all the best with everything that's coming up. Roll Tide.
Thanks so much. Roll Tide.
Crimson Drive is driven by NASCAR, and there's nothing quite like Sweet Home Talladega. Don't miss out on NASCAR's much-anticipated return to Talladega Superspeedway on April 23rd. Experience the excitement of four-wide racing and acres of some of the best camping NASCAR has to offer. Join the best party in sports and lock in your tickets today at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. Terrific conversation with the Director of Athletics, Greg Byrne. Some really exciting updates on the way for Crimson Tide Athletics. We appreciate him for his time. We'll look forward to having him back on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, coming up next month with even more updates on the future of Alabama athletics. Wednesday night certainly was a fun night at Coleman Coliseum as we take a look back with our Courtside Cam highlights of the Mississippi State game. Plus, we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nate Oats, after Alabama hosted Mississippi State.
Bediako now the backdoor cut. They go to Miller. Beautiful feed from Bradley, and Bama gets the bucket.
My goodness, backdoor cut for Miller, hammering it down on the baseline.
Brandon Miller will drive right side, double team to the baseline. Somehow finds Welch, left side, three, bottom. Sears will drive down the lane, wrap around pass and beauty to Pringle, lays it up and in for two. Nick Pringle a chance for the and one here for the Crimson Tide. He will drive baseline, stops underneath the basket, needs help, gives it off, and Pringle will throw it home.
Nick Pringle with the hammer, answering the bell. What Alabama needs. We talked a little bit before about his input in this game.
5 points for Pringle quickly off the bench. Bama looking to get it in and does to Miller in the far corner. He'll work against Jeffries, taking it to the wing. He'll step back, he'll drive, he'll get into the lane, he'll kick into the corner. Quinterly, all of them, three, bottom. Pretty simple when you do that, isn't it?
And a beautiful play and a good decision by Brandon Miller, shaking off the defender, finding the open three-pointer in the corner.
Goes right side at three, drives, dishes, all alone. Welch, three, in and out, and then back in again. Davis will throw a lob down low. It's batted around, picked up by Miller. Ahead now to JQ. Bounce pass to the trailer. Miller lays it up and in for two more. 4-point game.
Beautiful effort by Alabama, getting out off to the races in transition. You can see they're picking up some energy from the crowd.
State trying to get a run out. Here comes Miller. He blocked it. He blocked the shot, but State got it back and then lost it out of bounds. What a play. Brandon Miller chasing down a dog from behind, swatted it off the glass. Out of bounds, touched last by Alabama, but what a play by Brandon Miller to save a bucket there in transition.
My goodness, a phenomenal display of athleticism. As you can see, Brandon Miller tracking him down, running like a gazelle with those strides, elevating up high with the block, blocking it with two hands, one after the other. Outstanding.
With 6, driving down the lane, kicks it out to Griffin, fakes a 3, puts up the teardrop in the lane, and the friendly roll goes. In Bama 2 within 1, the closest they have been since we were tied at 2 apiece. Jeffries to his right, Jeffries down the lane, charge! Brandon Miller took it, and Bama will get the ball with 9:41 to go. Sears on the drive, working against Davis, gets to the baseline, steps back to the corner. Griffin, 3 for the lead.
Big time three-point by Ryland Griffin in the corner. Everybody on their feet.
Quinterly to Gurley, now to Miller, steps back, 3, bottom. Another bank first three-pointer for Brandon Miller. Bama the lob, the dunk from Clowney, a beautiful feed from JQ. Finds Quinterly, fakes a 3, drives in, lob, caught and laid in by Clowney. Incredible play by Noah Clowney. Didn't have the position, but somehow got it in, and Bama leads it by 4. Timeout, Mississippi State. JQ inside the arc, pulls up from 15, bottom. The all-star to the mid-range jumper, and he knocks it home there.
Oh, you know I love to see it. That's from my generation. I love the mid-range J.
Over to Sears. Mark trying to shake free from Davis. Gets downhill, lays it up and in. What a move, Mark Sears. Near steal by Quinterly. It's out of bounds. It'll belong to State when we come back. With 17 seconds to go. The Dogs will get front court, and the crowd comes to its feet, making some noise here at Coleman. State working it right side. Matthews, 8 to play. 7, 6 more at the top of the arc. Blocked by Gurley, but into the hands of another shooter right side. It's no good. Buzzer sounds, and hallelujah, let's get the heck out of here. Eric Reed missed a 3 wide left, and we're playing the song out of habit tonight.
And you can see a sigh of relief from the Bama players as they feel like, wow, an outstanding game coming down to the wire. Mississippi State missing the shot at the end of the game to go into overtime. They're happy to get out of here with a win and protect home court.
The victory for Alabama, 66-63, as the Tide fights off a valiant effort, to say the least, from Mississippi State. But Bama's pluck and grit able to get enough to get to the win column here tonight by 3.
It wasn't a pretty victory as we have become accustomed to seeing from Alabama early on in SEC play, but nonetheless a victory, and Alabama puts another one in the win column, keeping them ahead in the standings.
Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been, will be, and it'll be here sooner than you think.
SEC is a tough league. I mean, that team's only won 1 game in the SEC, and you saw how tough it was to get a win. Got to give a ton of credit to Mississippi State. They came ready to play. I thought they had a great plan. They improved more than we improved from the first time we played them. I didn't think we did a great job getting our guys ready to go. We didn't do a good job attacking them. We didn't start the game like we needed to, but I give our guys a lot of credit in the second half. They found a way to get a win in a tight game. We haven't had very many tight games, so it's not the worst that we had to figure out how to win a close game, especially when you're down. I told our guys 2 years ago when we won the SEC championship, in the tournament, in the semifinal, we're down 15 to Tennessee. You got to figure out how to win games that aren't going your way. I mean, we shot 18% from 3 and couldn't buy a bucket, and still figured out how to beat a pretty good team. I mean, I know their record doesn't say they're good, but I still think they're a good team. I think they're going to upset some people. They play really hard. They had us down 10, so they had us down 11, I think, at one point. So it's a quality team, but at this point, we'll take a win.
Yeah, you mentioned this is not the worst to have a close win. What are the specific things you want your players to take away from a night like this that can help in the postseason?
We told them, one, they got to be ready to go out of the gate. Like, we chart blue-collar points. They had us doubled up in the first 2 4-minute wars. I didn't think we played hard enough. Mississippi State was playing harder than we were to start the game. So then when you're not playing hard enough, you're not getting stops on offense, you start to struggle a little bit. I think when your defense is great, you kind of just lose yourself in the game. The offense is easier. You get some easier buckets in transition. So then it kind of compounded. I thought in the second half, we played a lot harder. The beginning of the half wasn't great on offense. We had, I think, 4 turnovers in the first 4 minutes. But I thought we were playing harder. And then eventually we played hard enough, got enough stops, got out in transition, hit a few transition buckets, got some easier looks. The offense started flowing a little bit more, but it was not a great offensive game by any stretch for us tonight. Yeah, he was huge. I mean, he can shoot, so they couldn't really sag him as much, and they tried to switch. I thought he's got some explosiveness to get in the paint, make plays happen. He hit the 1-3. He hit some drives going in. He made his free throws for the most part. I think he missed the one layup. He's 5 of 6 at the line, so. He had 4 assists and only 1 turnover. I think you're starting to see he ended up leading us in scoring tonight. On a night when we needed some scoring help. They did a great job on Brandon and Sears. We needed somebody to step up and score the ball, and JQ's been able to score for us pretty well in the past. We needed him tonight, so we needed everybody. I thought Pringle played well. Maybe he should have got him a few more minutes, but. He scored 7 points in 8 minutes. He was 3 for 3 at the line. His free throws are big. There's a guy that struggled in the past. He's worked hard to correct his free throws. We needed every last one of them tonight. So there's a couple guys that maybe hadn't played as big a role as we needed. Noah Gurley, I thought, gave us big minutes late in the game and closed the game for us. So we got. It's the thing about this team is we're deeper. We got some depth. We can use it, when we need to. And we had some guys step up tonight. Yeah, it was great to see some shots drop for Dom. That one at the end of the half was big, cut it from 10 to 7. We know he's a shooter. He's been practicing really hard, trying to get him some minutes. The Brandon, I didn't really take him out for doing anything wrong particularly. It's just, I think there was 16:40, if I remember right, to go. We were coming down on defense. He just picked up a foul. I figured I got him right back in at the media. I just figured we could save him a possession or 2 on defense. Try not to get him in foul trouble. I know we're going to need him. Might have been good because he ended up with 3 fouls. He picked up a couple unnecessary ones there in the second half. He tends to do that occasionally. So Brandon's deal was just trying to foul trouble. And then I thought offensively, did I sub JQ in for Bradley maybe too? I thought JQ could maybe just go in a little bit. They'd have to guard him a little bit closer out there. He's a little bit better shooter. They seemed to be helping off Jaden a lot, sagging him. Jaden did do a good job, I thought, bringing in the second half, maybe attacking a little better, but it was a little harder with the way they were guarding Jaden to get us going a little bit.
Well, it's getting closer to the start of college baseball season, and on Monday's edition of Hey Coach, presented by Alpha Insurance, we were joined first at Baumhower's Victory Grill before Nate Oats by the head coach of the Alabama baseball team, Brad Bohannon. We had a really fun conversation talking about his excitement for the start of practice, but wanted to replay this part of our conversation that we had. He really went position by position through the entire Alabama baseball roster, really gave his expectations on who we could see on the diamond. There was a lot coming back for the Crimson Tide, but also, as we learned, a lot of newcomers for the Crimson Tide baseball team this spring. Let's start to go through some of the roster, and we'll start with your pitching staff. I'm not going to ask you for the full starting rotation, but maybe some guys who are going to get the nod in the first inning in some of the early weeks of the season, both on the weekend and at midweeks.
Roger, to be really good in the SEC, there are 3 components. Number one, you have to have some real talent. Okay, you can't just have a bunch of average guys. You better have some real bullets. The next thing is you got to have some experience, and then the third thing is you got to stay healthy, catch some teams at the right time. A lot of stuff that's out of your control. Well, for 4 straight years, we had an entirely new weekend rotation. each year we had kind of, recruited over the earlier group, and there's no substitute for experience. So we go from 4 years in a row of having a new weekend rotation, and now we have the entire weekend rotation back. So, I would think that Garrett McMillan and Grayson Hitt and Jacob McNary are certainly all in the mix to start. There were 2 freshmen last year that pitched a lot and really came on over the course of the season that have taken big steps forward. If there aren't 20 pitchers better in the country than Ben Hess. I mean, he's 6'5", he's 250. He's throwing the ball in the mid-90s with really high spin. He's got 2 distinct breaking balls. He's got really pivotal innings for us, whether it's on the front or back end of the game. And Luke Holman is made a big jump. I mean, he's kind of pitching in that 90-94 range and probably has the best breaking ball on our team that he's throwing for a strike. He had a really hard time doing that last year. So, those are 5 guys that really, stand out as being great options on the front end of the game. And, another one, I don't like talking about new guys, but Riley Quick is kind of different than most freshmen that you get. He's another 6'5", 250 kid. And, Riley, JJ's done a great job with Riley. He throws a mid-90s sinker that literally is it's a above average major league pitch when you look at all the metrics of the spin rate and axis and velocity. But he's throwing 94, 95 mile an hour fastballs they're moving like this. I mean, it looks like a left-handed breaking ball. So his secondary stuff has still got to come on, and he's a freshman, but he comes from he's made of the right stuff. Really mature, competitive kid and with a slow heart rate. So he's one that we're excited about, and I can see him pitching on the front end of the game as well.
How do you try and balance getting your pitchers specifically work early in the season, making sure everybody gets a taste of college baseball, a lot of freshmen in there for the first time, versus trying to figure out some key roles for your team, especially the bullpen, as you go along those first few weeks before SEC play?
Yeah, that's tricky. There's some kids that just kind of profile to the bullpen. Like, it helps to be a starter if you have 3 pitches. If you're truly just a 2-pitch guy, if you have a fastball and a breaking ball and you just don't have a feel for a changeup, it's harder to face a hitter 3 and 4 times. So, that the 2-pitch guy really profiles to the bullpen. And maybe if it's somebody with a funky arm slot that has big splits, meaning that they are a lot tougher against left-handed hitters than right-handed hitters, then maybe use that guy in the bullpen to match him up when there's multiple left or right-handed hitters coming up. So there's a few things like that. At the end of the day, you want guys that can get swing and miss, that pound the strike zone, that work with good tempo, can fill their position, control the running game. And, those guys you want them pitching the first inning and the 9th inning and the 3rd inning and the 7th inning. So, I don't think there's an exact formula. And that's one of the reasons why I think you do see some roles change throughout the season, because sometimes you think somebody can handle a certain role and you get a month into it and you figure out, unfortunately, the hard way that maybe, you're going to get more value out of them on the front end or the back end of the game.
As we continue talking about the roster, behind the plate, some experience there with Dominic Temez, and also somebody we saw play for the Florida Gators last season, Matt Cassetti, transfers in.
It is so hard to find a catcher. I mean, they'll tell you that at the big league level and the pro scouting community. And, gosh, we have 2 legitimate SEC catchers for the first time since I've been here. And it's a really tough position. And, Dom had a really good year for us this year. He's worked really hard. He's changed his body. Really think that, people close to the program saw how well he swung the bat last fall, and he hit 2 home runs on opening day. And I think he's a much better offensive player than what he showed last year. And, he certainly didn't have a bad year, but I expect Dom to take a big step forward offensively. Mac, I told Kevin O'Sullivan, the coach at Florida, when I saw him at the SEC head coaches meeting, I was like, hey, Mac is a really good compliment to your program, because he really knows how to play, really knows how to run a pitching staff, and has really good energy. He's a really high-level receiver. We have access to all kinds of science and technology and metrics, and Mac was literally in the top 5% college baseball last year in receiving metrics. He's a very accurate thrower. He's, played at a top, probably the best program in the country. So, and he's really swung the bat well since he's been here. So really confident in our catching position. I think it'll be a strength of our club.
And then around the infield, some returners coming in like Drew Williamson, Jim Jarvis, saw a lot of Bryce Evelyn last year, but also some exciting newcomers to the infield mix.
Yeah, really happy to have Jim and Drew back. I mean, they're two of the best defensive players at their position in the conference, which means they're two of the better defenders in the country. And, you know, I think you saw Drew come along offensively last year. I think he hit 290 with 8 home runs, and I could see him taking another step forward with that. Jim is, we made some changes with him mechanically, and he's impacting the ball better, so really hopeful that he'll get some more extra base hits. And, you know, Jim made an error right at the end of fall practice, and it, like, was deathly silent for like 30 seconds because like literally Jim had gone 2 falls without making a single error.
Wow.
And it was like a ball that bounced up to him chest high and it just like fell out of his glove. And everybody's like, oh my God, what just happened? Jim made an error. So I think Jim would be the best defensive shortstop in the league this year. And you know, Bryce Evelyn's a really good player, showed some signs last year. I think he'll be better. Have a couple other guys that are really in the mix. Colby Shelton is a freshman that is a really high-end player, very polished, very physical, doesn't look or play like a freshman. Ed Johnson's a grad transfer from Tennessee Tech. They hit 370 with 14 home runs up there. It's just, you know, he's one of these guys who's got 1,000 college at-bats under his belt. And Mason Swinney is another freshman that's got a lot of talent. So really feel good about our depth. Caden Rose is a really good defensive infielder. You know, he's a great center fielder too. So, you know, if you're trying to get more left or right-handed bats in a lineup, Caden gives you some flexibility with that as well.
Let's round it out. Let's go to the outfield.
Yeah, well, you know, pretty good chance Andrew Pinckney's going to be in there. Obviously, Caden is a really good player. You know, they statistically were our best 2 offensive players last year, and they're both just, you know, the thing about those, you want to have as many players like them on the field. They can run, they can throw, they can hit for average, they can hit for power. And they, you know, Andrew and Caden, they can strike out 2 times and pop up twice and still help you win by making a diving catch or a web gem or throwing a runner out at a base or, you know, scoring from first on a double. So, you know, I think those guys will obviously get a lot of opportunity. You know, and there's really 4 or 5 other guys that are truly in the mix out there. You know, Tommy Seidel has put on 10 pounds. He's really impacting the ball well. He's making more contact. Obviously did a really good job at times last year, you know, midweek and running the bases and defensively. Camden Hayslip was a kid that came in with a lot of notoriety that for whatever reason just wasn't ready last year, and he had some bad luck with some injuries, and he's made some really nice strides. And Ryan Gardino's a grad transfer from Tennessee Tech that hit 17 home runs, I believe, up there last year. So, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but no, and William Hammeter, you know, he's played a lot of SEC baseball and has a really high-level field of hit. So, you know, I think as we're talking through this, you're talking about a lot of guys that have a lot of college at-bats and some left and some right and some athleticism and some physicality. You know, and one last guy that every time I do this, I get home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I talked about the pitcher. I didn't mention this guy. You know, I told this guy today he's the X factor, but you know, Will Hodo has the most power on our team, and you know, he's just was a freshman last year, just wasn't ready, and man, he looks great right now. So I'm really excited about him, and he'll, you know, certainly get some opportunity at the plate as well.
Fantastic rundown of the Alabama baseball roster from Coach Bohannon. Thanks to Brad Bohannon for joining us on Monday night with Hey Coach. Really a fun conversation, and we can't wait for the baseball team to start play coming up on February 17th against the Richmond Spiders here in Tuscaloosa. That's still a few weekends away. In between, we've got a lot of excitement coming up here for you on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Let's take a look at our weekend schedule, and it's brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. We have the pickles chips here, and they are always a proud presenter of our Wickles Weekend Update. Find out more at wicklespickles.com. Let's take a look at what's coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Later tonight, it's the Alabama women's basketball team taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks, a battle for 5th place in the SEC coming up, both teams at 4-3. Our coverage will start at 5 until 6 p.m. coming up on the network on the radio side this evening. Also, make sure tomorrow you watch the Nate Oats television show with Chris Stewart and Nate Oats, recapping the past week and what's ahead for Crimson Tide men's basketball. Saturday, Nate Oats and the Crimson Tide will be in action at Oklahoma in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. 1 p.m. is the tip-off from Norman. Our coverage across the radio network will begin at noon. Then on Sunday, catch up with the latest on Alabama athletics with Tide TV this week, as well as join us at Coleman Coliseum at noon for Alabama women's basketball against the #1 ranked team in the country. The defending national champions South Carolina Gamecocks will be in town, so we look forward to being back at Coleman for that women's basketball game. And then on Monday, 6 p.m., we're back with another edition of Hey Coach presented by Alpha Insurance. We'll be joined at Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa by gymnastics head coach Ashley Johnston, as well as as the men's basketball head coach, Nate Oats. That's your Wickles Weekend Update. Crimson Drive is driven by NASCAR, and the NASCAR Cup Series is returning to Talladega on April 23rd. You don't want to miss it. Don't miss your chance to experience the energy and excitement of the iconic Geico 500. Purchase your tickets today at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. That's going to wrap up a busy edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We certainly thank Greg Byrne, the Director of Athletics, for joining us to give us the latest on Alabama athletics, along with a few exciting updates about what's coming up on campus here at Alabama. Certainly appreciate as well the time from Coach Bohannon on Hey Coach on Monday night, as well as everything we got to see from Coleman Coliseum on Wednesday. Thanks as well to Ethan Carabin, our producer, for putting this show together, and thanks to all of you for watching. Again, we have a really exciting weekend coming up, even with the Crimson Tide and women's basketball on the road later tonight, on the road on Saturday. Make sure you join us coming up on Sunday for women's basketball against South Carolina. We look forward to seeing all of you there once again, and we'll have all of it covered right here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. For everybody with CTSN and Alabama, this is Roger Hoover saying good afternoon and roll Tide.